You can also listen to us on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/The Clock Cleaners. Hey guys, Keith here with another GFW Impact review. So tonight we had a pretty good show. It was, I would say, jam-packed. A lot happened, and yeah, pretty excited to see where it goes. So we opened the show with a recap of last week's Gauntlet for the Gold and Eli Drake winning the Global Championship. To open the actual show, we started with Eli's championship celebration. So he gets in the ring with Chris Adonis, and he's talking about how it took him 14 years to become the champion. And while he's excited that he's the champion, he's complaining that it also took him 14 years to be here. So he says he stands on top of the global mountain, or he's the global champion on top of the global mountain, and no one can knock him down. So at this point, Johnny Impact comes out, and he says he's speaking for the entire locker room when they want Eli to basically shut his mouth. He says he's here for one reason, and one reason only, and that's the championship. At this point, Eddie Edwards comes out, and he addresses everyone, and then he says, you know, I've been here for a lot longer than you have, Johnny, and I kind of outrank you. So Cornette comes out, and he makes a tag team match for later on tonight with, if Edwards or Johnny Impact win the match, whoever scores the pinfall gets the first title shot. Now, if Eli or Adonis score a pinfall, then neither of them will face Eli for the championship. So I think this is how they should have done it. I don't mean to get off topic, but with the whole number one contendership on SmackDown, with their tag team match from Tuesday night, I feel like if they went about it this way, it would have made a lot more sense. But anyway, so up next we had a backstage segment with Allie and Taryn Terrell. So Allie wants to know why Terrell was so mean to Gail Kim last week, and Terrell says, you know, let me give you a message to take back to Gail, and she starts to beat her up. So seems like something's going on there. Up next, we have Ohio versus Everything versus Ba and Baccarat. So this was, well, they were kind of saying that this was OVE's first real test. So this was pretty much OVE dominating again. They looked a lot better than they had in the last two matches, so I'm kind of coming around to them. We also saw that LAX was watching this match from their compound, so I'm guessing that sooner or later we're going to get a match between the two teams. OVE ended up winning with a Doomsday Cutter. It was a pretty cool move, but yeah, not a real surprise here. They really seem to be pushing them. So, like I said, makes sense for us to see them in the tag title picture in somewhat of the near future. So up next, we had a backstage segment. I was kind of confused about this one. Moose and Cornette were talking about Triple A's Triple Mania and how Moose was going to be in the Battle Royal alongside, who else was there? I think Bobby Lashley was there, and I don't remember who the third person was on the team. But this actually had happened last week, so I was kind of confused as to why they were talking about this like it was happening in the future. At this point, EC3 comes in, and he wants to know why he wasn't going to be at Triple Mania. And Cornette says, well, you're going to be busy with Phantasma, which Phantasma wrestled Johnny Impact at the show, so I'm kind of confused here. But at this point, EC3 says, oh, I didn't know. And Moose and Cornette, in total sync, say, oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody. So, yeah, it was a little funny moment there. Don't know why they would reference anything from WWE, but whatever. So, up next, we had Caleb Conley with Trevor Lee in his corner versus the returning P.D. Williams. Now, they were going on saying that P.D. hasn't wrestled in GFW in 8 years, I believe it was. So this was kind of a big return match for him. And this was a really good match. Trevor Lee kind of made his presence known pretty early that he was there and watching Petey. At one point, Petey set up for the Canadian Destroyer, and Trevor Lee ended up getting up on the apron. And as he was trying to distract Petey, he kind of, well, I should say Caleb tried to get the upper hand, but Petey pushed him into Trevor Lee. And Petey was able to hit the Canadian Destroyer for the win. After the match, Lee and Conley beat down Petey, but Sanjay Dutt came out and made the save. So I'm guessing we're going to see some progression in this storyline in the X division, which is good because all four of these guys are good, and it's good to see Petey back. So up next, we were told that the standby wrestler Richard Justice is going to be in his first singles match. So this is a pretty interesting storyline here. All right, so up next, we had a backstage segment with Karen Jarrett and Taryn Terrell and Sienna. And, Karen Jarrett was kind of yelling at them about what happened earlier on in the night. And she makes a match for next week between the two of them facing Allie and Gail Kim. She seemed to make it that she was going to add some sort of stipulation to the match. But, like I said, they didn't make any mention of it there. So I'm sure we'll see that next week. Up next, we had Richard Justice's first match against Congo Kong. Yeah, this was not very good. Congo Kong won with a splash from the top rope. The whole Congo Kong thing is just kind of... Why? It just feels so cheesy and something that we would see from, like, WWF in the 90s. But not something we should be seeing right now. So after the match, Congo Kong beats down Justice, and Shira comes out for the save, and he hits a flying shoulder tackle on Kong, knocking him out of the ring, and that was it. So I know there's been some confrontation between Kong and Shira, so I guess they're going to continue this, and we'll eventually get a match between the two. Like last week in the Gauntlet for the Gold, they matched up with each other. So, yeah, it's something. So up next, we had a Johnny Impact interview where he was asked about the tag match later, and he basically reiterated the same thing he said earlier on, saying that he came here to win the title. We get a video from LAX's hideout with Conan talking to Low-Ki about his match with James Storm later on, tells him to send Storm to the hospital. Up next, we had that match with Low-Ki facing James Storm. So apparently this was James Storm's first match back since his concussion. This was a pretty hard-hitting match. You could really tell that Storm was so much bigger than Low-Ki just by the way he was tossing him around. But Low-Ki had LAX around ringside, so that kind of worked out in his favor. They had gotten involved in a handful of times before the finish of the match, which Conan ended up getting up on the apron and distracting the referee. Santana had grabbed the tag title and hit Storm in the face with it. He hits the Warriors way for the win. So, yeah, I guess I don't know what they're going to do because, like I mentioned last week, that Low-Ki is leaving the company shortly. So I'm guessing after this set of tapings they just did. So we'll see where that goes from here. Up next, we had a backstage segment with Braxton Sutter checking up on Allie after she was attacked earlier on. You see Garza Jr. kind of enter and come up to Allie and just wants to make sure that she's okay and see how she's doing. Sutter tells him to leave, and Allie is like, he was just seeing how I was doing. Sutter was like, no, I know what he was doing. So this was a great moment. We had Grado and Laurel Van Ness with Joseph Park going over a checklist for the wedding. So they talk about the guest list, and Grado tells Park who he's going to invite, and he lists, I think, the Honky Tonk Man and a couple other people, and then he asks Laurel who she's going to invite, and she's like, I'm going to invite my family from Victoria. And Park goes, oh, Victoria, Wyoming? And she says, no, Canada. So at this point, Park spits his water out because now we find out that Laurel Van Ness is from Canada. This really isn't going to help Grado's whole immigration situation. So that was a pretty good segment. The whole storyline here has been pretty good. So we'll see what happens next. So next we get an interview with Bobby Lashley on his decision if he's going to stay in wrestling or leave wrestling. And he's asked if his career is over, and he says he's just concerned about winning titles and doesn't want to leave either wrestling or MMA. He says he'll make his decision when the time comes. So it's given Lashley something to do while he's not in the main event picture, really. So it's not bad. The storyline's kind of growing on me a little bit. At first, I was kind of like, why are they doing this? And then, so it makes a little more sense now. So, up next, we had the main event of the show. This actually came on at about 9:30, so they gave this match a little while. It was a good match. This was the Chris Adonis and Eli Drake versus Eddie Edwards and Johnny Impact. The fans seem to be really behind Johnny Impact, which is great because GFW just added another star to their already pretty strong roster. I mean, these four guys were in the main event this week. You still got Matt Sydal, you got Bobby Lashley, you got EC3, you have a list of people that could main event the show. It's nice to see that they have that kind of roster. So the finish saw Eli Drake getting the win after he hits Eddie Edwards with a low blow, and he hits I guess they were calling it the gravy drain, the Eli gravy train, or the Eli drop. I don't know what they're referring to it now, but like I said, they called it the gravy train, and that's how the match ended. So after the match, Bobby Lashley and America's Top Team surround the ring. Lambert gets on the mic and he kind of runs down the four wrestlers in the ring and says, you guys call yourself athletes compared to Lashley, and so they threaten to attack everyone. And at this point, Jim Cornette comes out and he tells Lashley that if they do this, that he's going to lose his match in Mexico, which again seems like the timing was strange considering Triple Mania happened last week. But hey, I could be wrong. Maybe they're talking about something else. But Cornette then announces that next week we'll get Matt Sydal versus Eli Drake for the global title, which, if you guys remember, at Destination X, Matt Sydal had defeated Bobby Lashley, and since he won the match, he was able to pick a title of his choosing. So, yeah, like I said, this was an overall good show. A lot of stuff going on. It seems like bringing Cornette was the right decision right now. I really just didn't really have too much negative to say about the show, and that's always a good thing. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think of the show. Leave a comment in the section below. Let me know how you thought the show was, what you think about my review. Positive, negative, doesn't matter either way. So yeah, if you like what you've seen here, please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.